could you tell me a little bit about the goal of solidarity across borders in the event you guys recently held on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Solidarity Across Borders has been working with undocumented immigrants and failed refugee seekers in Canada, particularly in Montreal and some other parts of Canada as well, trying to, to build a sense of community, because one of the issues that people without status face is that they have no community. And so they often live in isolation and suffer exploitation and all those kind of things. So Solidarity Across Borders tries to make a sense of community that support, that create a community that support them, but also it tries to push, it tries to create a political program that makes possible that the Canadian government creates a regularization program so that they can have access, just as the rest of Canadians, to the social security system. And this is now particularly relevant, and that was the reason of the event last Saturday, in this moment in which people are losing their jobs. And now with the curfew, people are at having risks of being detained by the police and probably reported and deported to the countries. And so Solidarity with Borders is trying to prevent all that from happening and to make possible that they are welcome here, that they are respected, because we are convinced that they already give a lot to our communities. They do good works that are essential, that are fundamental for our society. They also bring their culture. We are friends. They develop also friendships, and so we think it's fair that they are respected, recognized, and included in Canadian society. That's the role of Solidarity Across Borders.
Okay, thank you. So are deportations continuing through the pandemic? And if they are, have you noticed if maybe this is at an accelerated rate compared to pre-pandemic?
No, in fact, at this moment of time, deportations, even people who were in prisons, migrant prisons, in deportation centers, like the one we have in Laval, have been not suspended, but they are kind of in a moment in which not much is happening. But we know that as long as this happens, as soon as this finished, the pandemic, I hope soon, they are going to get again, persecuted, because they are in the radar of the Canadian government, and so that creates, at the level of their life, it creates a lot of stress, because people are already dealing with the problems with, trying to look for a job and trying to make a living, trying to make their kids have food on the table, trying to make the kids go to school. There is a reason why they are living here. And that reason is because often they are escaping persecution, they are escaping domestic violence, they are escaping state repression in their countries of origin, and that is. And so, with the threat of being deported, it just adds to the already, bunch of problems they already have. And so, yeah, that's what happened with deportations.
And so in the case of curfew, police, stopping people, maybe asking for documents and finding out that some people, whether they are status or not, in this case, would they just kind of like mark on their record, or would they take them to a deportation center such as the one in Laval?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, supposedly the police shouldn't be collaborating with the CBSA, which is the institution that is in charge of, keeping track of them and basically to attract them and deport them and put them in the deportation center and then deport them. And so that shouldn't happen in the normal world. But what we have learned is that the police, when sometimes, get into some of them, whether for whatever reason, and now with the curfew, there is more risk of that happening, because they work at night. Normally, people work at night. I mean, they work in jobs that nobody wants to do. And so basically, those are night shifts and places where nobody wants to go every day and stuff. And so what happens is that when they get into, they are asked by identification or papers and so on, often, and the police report them to the CBSA, which shouldn't happen in a normal world, let's say. And so what happens is then they are taken away there from their homes or from their families. They are put into deportation centers in Laval, particularly, and there is a paperwork involved. And so while that happens, after that they get deported. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Have you been in contact with some people who have maybe experienced this, or is this more of you're just kind of, I guess, in fear that this will happen?
Oh no, definitely. That's one of the main kind of works we do in Solidarity Across Borders, to provide support to people who have actually experienced the process of deportation, whether they are living here or they are having already deported in other parts, Mexico, Latin America, and Africa. We still contact with them. We provide support even at a distance. And yeah, definitely, that's one of the things that we do often. And just in June last year, in the middle of the pandemic crisis, we were providing support to people who were in the deportation center. Fortunately, all of them were released, and we found once people who is helping them out now that they are homes to them. They are living in their homes and so on. So we are in contact with them, absolutely. And one of the things that you learn when you are in contact with them, when you talk to them, I particularly, for example, do research on the effects of deportation. My doctoral thesis at Carleton is about precisely that, about the effects of deportation on the mental and physical health. And it has a tremendous impact on them. It's a tremendous impact. Just to put you an example, we have one of our colleagues who is undocumented still, and now fortunately was accepted into Canadian University, even though her condition, very, very happily, because those kind of things happen also in Canada. There's a lot of beautiful solidarity and so on. And is that, every time she was subjected to deportation, her brother was deported, they were separated. And she's living with what scholars in the field of trauma study is called historical trauma. She has nightmares every time she listens to for example, an ambulance or police. She trembles. She can't sleep. She cries often. There are moments of depression and so on. And so definitely this has a very, very, very hard impact on them. And that's one of the main things that we do. So yes, I know the situation because we work directly with them. Yeah. I don't know if that responds to your question.
Definitely, it definitely does. Yeah, it's unfortunate to hear things like that. I was honestly thinking about that, kind of the emotional effect it has on you, not just in the short term, in the long term. It sounds like it must be very significant. Would you say that COVID and just the circumstance of the pandemic, is it putting non-status workers, not just at risk of deportation, but, more at risk of contracting COVID than, like someone like me or a status people?
Absolutely. Very, very important question. Very relevant. Look, most of the people we work with, and I say, we have been for 15 years doing this, live in overcrowded places. Most of them work in places where they have no much security, like in terms of in the workplace, like, health and hazard training is not existing for them. And normally, on the ground, there is no much rules about just your willingness to provide cheap labor, basically, right? And just absolutely, they are very, very much exposed to in the everyday life to the COVID-19, um, in the job, but also people who live in one apartment, like let's say one apartment with 5 people, they work in different places, they are exposed to different environments, and they live together, right? And so that is creating a lot of preoccupation among us, in fact, about the possibility of people getting COVID. Actually, we have some of our people we have been supporting with COVID. One of them, for example, is a person who was providing essential job in a CLSC, it's called in Quebec. And so he contracted, he was, when he said, I think I got COVID because he got sick, and he said, well, okay, you take some days off, go to testing. He did testing, he resulted positive. Unfortunately, he's alive now. He's a very young person. And he was just after that pushed out of the job. So he's now jobless and with no income and with COVID and all that. And definitely it's creating more strain on them. Not only in terms of the COVID infection, I would like to add, but also fundamentally in terms of is creating COVID-19 an enormous crisis in the families of undocumented people, not status people. Why? Because a lot of them, or whether are losing their jobs, or they don't want to now with the curfew to go to work because they are going to be asked by this letter that you need to have when you go at night after 8 p.m. to work. And so they are fearful of that and they are not working. Literally now we have a lot of members, a lot of people we work with who are about to get homeless. I mean, they can't pay the bills, the rent and all that. And even though Solidarity Across Borders has a permanent fundraising for undocumented people, for people who lost their jobs and have no ways to pay their bills. Well, we are an organization. We are a big organization, but it's not enough for all of them. And so we provide a tiny support for some of them. And but we have learned that there is some tremendous crisis in their families, in their as an individual level as well. And so that's one of the things that COVID has brought to us, a lot of occupation and displacement, more displacement, and joblessness, and so on.
Would you say you've noticed maybe an increase in non-status people reaching out to Solidarity Across Borders during the pandemic?
Much more, much more. We have a lot of work. And so, it's a voluntary organization. Nobody receives salary. It's a grassroots organization. And so people who we are already Canadians, myself, I was not born here, I arrived here. But some of us, we have a permanent status. And yes, we receive a lot of demand for support and people reaching out and about what to do. Much more than, for example, before the pandemic, 2 years ago, let's say, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Actually, something that you answered earlier about the non-status worker working in the CHSLD who lost his job after, I think he was actually the one I was in contact with, Omar. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah. Have you heard any other cases like that? People losing their job after they become COVID positive, or
Yeah,
maybe, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I was talking to three of them this morning, three of them who used to attend demonstrations. We can't. So they called me, sorry, anything. Very sorry what happened because two of the three we live in this place in a one-bedroom apartment. Very hardworking people, beautiful people from Mexico, two from Mexico, one from Guatemala, who have family in Mexico. And say, basically we can't send any kind of remittances. And so we are just reaching out to say, I'm sorry we couldn't make it. And I said, no, don't feel sorry about it. We're gonna try to find a way to help you out. And so, yeah, those three cases I was talking to in the morning, two cases out of three. Three friends who live together, they lost their jobs. Absolutely.
Do you have any suspicion as to why their employers might lay them off because of COVID?
In this case in particular, just to avoid being abstract on this, in this case in particular, one of them decided not to go because he has to work at night shift, and he said, I don't want to. I can work. I was told that I can work, but I don't want to go because I don't want to be, intercepted by the police and asked by my documents, and I don't have any. So I prefer to resist a little bit, and then in the future, hopefully, I can get another job, and I can provide the money to my family. It's a difficult moment, but I'm gonna get, we're gonna try to make it through. And the other one, he lost his job because he used to work in construction in renovation inside the houses, and he said, now is nobody's really demanding our work because there is a lot of less demand. People are afraid you can actually under the new rules you can provide services, but people sometimes are fearful to have somebody from outside cleaning your house inside and doing work. So people feel worried about it. Of course, it's like everybody. And so they demand less work. And so the employers say, I'm sorry, but there is no job at this moment. I'm gonna call you when you are needed again. And so, in a moment of like this, the people who are most in most precarious, like including homeless people, for example, homeless people, are the ones who, who suffer the most. And this is a clear example of it. If you and I, or people who listen to your program or see your program, lose their jobs, we have SER, we have so many other options. We rely on our social security system, which is wonderful, which is in general, which is fantastic, proper for a democratic society. But there are people who can't access to that, and we don't find that fair. We don't find that fair. I mean, the reason we have fruits and vegetables, on our tables every day is because there are people like picking them up and planting them out, and so on. And those are, I'm telling you, when I was doing my field work, I used to work in those places. My field was ethnographic work. And 90% of the people who provide those essential kind of work in the food industry, for example, are whether precarious status, people who are allowed to live here but are in a very precarious, waiting for their application to be heard and stuff like that, or whether people who lost their status. And so we say, we are a very rich country, one of the richest countries in the world. We have the most amazing social security system in the world, in the planet. Um, and yet there are people who can't have access to all of that. And that is really sad. That is really sad. That shouldn't be happening.
Would you say that Canada's policies and its political system, it kind of allows and lets the circumstance of non-status people to be exploited, in these different professions, and this kind of situation to kind of thrive?
Absolutely, I think so. I think so. The fact that people, the people are, the people who lost their status. One of the reasons why people lose their status in the first place is because there is a bureaucratic system put in place that it's really very difficult to get through. When I was applying to gain status and all that, you can't imagine how much money I had to spend out of the money I didn't have. I had to actually ask for how's it, préstamos, to loans, friends and family, to pay the copy of this. And you have to prove so many things. You have to prove basically that you deserve to be here, to be heard, your case and stuff like that. So you have to spend a lot of money on that. And so we have a system really uh, that allows the people who have already some social security system, some money, to get through the system, to receive all those bureaucratic processes that are very hard. And we left behind people who can't afford all those kind of things, right? And so we have a system that is based on class, very much. It left behind the poor, the most beaten down. And this is, we like to compare with the United States, and we say, in Canada, we are much more decent society. And in several ways we are. But when it comes to migration system, with the exception, of Donald Trump, in general, in the United States, I lived there for 1 year in Chicago. In the United States, you have an enormous network of people, of support. The police is not always chasing people around. And there are factories that, have until up to 70% of the labor for who are undocumented. And very rarely they are searched by the police and so on. Because in some ways they understand that these countries were built upon migration and so on and so forth. And I think in Canada, we don't have that. People who lost their status are left behind. They have no access to healthcare, which doesn't happen in the United States. In the United States, even if you are undocumented, you have access to the security system, to healthcare. You are obligated to send your kids to school. I mean, the school here in the schools in Canada, just 2 years ago, we won the battle. Now they can have access to school in some places, not all of them, but it's all very new. And so definitely in Canada, we have a lot of work to do to really include people and to show them our respect. It is very important for me, respect and recognition to those who, for whatever reason, are here trying to do their best to, and in that path, they're providing so many services and bringing their culture here, and we definitely have a system that makes possible that a lot of people take advantage and basis of their precarious status. One of the things I learned when I was doing my work, my field work in Montreal and surrounding communities, doing work with undocumented workers, with permit of the university and so on, with the permission. And one of the things I learned is that when the bosses, not all of them, but some of them, realize that some of the workers lost their status, or they don't have any to protect them and anybody to protect them, and they have no labor representation and so on, they take advantage of it. And so the threat of deportation is used as a mechanism by which I uh, re, um, in, incorporate some of those workers into my factory in conditions of precarity. So basically, it's like I am paying you, as you just mentioned, that somebody told you, I want to pay you $10, even though I pay 25 to a local person, but I know that you need them, right? Sometimes it's not say that way. And I know that you are fearful and that you need this work. So, I'm going to take advantage of this. If a person says 10 or $15 per hour per worker, in a day, it's almost $100, right? So there is an economic incentive to people to abuse workers, undocumented workers, and that shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening at all. And so I think that the role of social organizations, the role of communicators like you, the role of the journalists like on Saturday they were there, the role of academics like myself, I just finished a PhD working at the university, the work of people who are worried about democracy and decency is to make possible that people learn what is going on so that we don't commit this mistake. Because people think sometimes, I have learned as well, that those things doesn't happen here, that those things happen only in other countries, in little countries, or in the United States and so on. No, that is happening here. And that's not fair. That's not cool.
It's almost silly too to see kind of the way Canada is represented, as very multicultural, welcoming of different countries, yet we have kind of backwards policies that, prevent people from accessing an equal opportunity and, being shipped off when they don't have status yet. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And unfortunately, some of the narrative that I do still see online, definitely from more right-leaning people, is that saying things like, "Oh, well, immigrants or undocumented people, they're coming here to steal our jobs." What would you try to say to someone who has a thought process like that?
Yeah, I could say that, inform yourself, because people actually know are not stealing our jobs. There are a lot of evidence, unfortunately, just written among academics, which is not very public. A lot of research on the fact that actually they are not stealing our jobs. They are filling up positions that nobody really wants to do. Why? Because not because Canadians are bad people. We are not bad people. It's just simply that um, we have a system, with a lot of security. We have a lot of expectations. People finish their undergraduate degrees, their master's degree, the PhD degrees. You get on any kind of qualification, working in a factory, and you get a good job, a good kind of salary and stuff like that. And in those conditions, you are not really willing. We are not really willing to do jobs that it implies to work at night, long shifts, extra hours, and very dirty jobs, very dangerous ones. I try to find something that is not so hard. And so the system has created a comfort for most people that, that creates demand for labor force that is willing to do whatever they need to do in order to make, to make a living. And so when people say they are stealing our jobs, it's really a cheap shot. It's this false. It's not true. And it's not nice to think that way, because it's based on prejudice rather than in something that really happens, right? um, in any case, the target should be the government, or shouldn't be, the factories that don't give jobs to Canadians, to provide jobs to cheap undocumented labor. But not the target shouldn't be the person who is being exploited. This has meaning. In fact, this is not cool. And so, yeah, that is false, and is not mm, it's not nice to think that way.
Thank you. I just want to backtrack to something we were talking about a little bit earlier. So, in order to get to the process of demanding status for all and actually the government to provide that, what does this look like? How can we get there?
Okay, to a full regularization program. That has happened in the past a lot. Just in Toronto, there was a try, I think 6 years ago, for people who work in construction. Federal government implemented a program of path to permanent resident citizenship, people who work in construction industry, even if they are undocumented. And so that happens, people apply and they eventually go into the system and they're happy. And so people say, it didn't work for me for whatever reason. And so that means, that the government should open a door. Of course, we understand that that door it should be regulated in somehow, some way. That's why it's a regularization program, right? It's not, everybody is welcome. I think it should be like that, but we are asking for something more practical and modest, which is, open a window, and so that people can apply, and so that we can eliminate suffering. It's not only about political thing, but it's about suffering. We eliminate suffering when we do that, and it should look like that. Just there is a program so that people can apply, and so that people can get a status, and they have a second chance, and because this is important to say, most of the undocumented people, around 90%, according to the research that I conducted on the portability and undocumented workers in Montreal, are people who didn't enter here illegally, are people who arrive actually asking for refuge. And so they were refused because, whether the judge didn't believe their story, because that person didn't have the papers to demonstrate, that what happens to them, or for whatever kind of bureaucratic reasons. So it's not because people, already are breaking the law and making plans to do bad to Canada. It's people actually couldn't make it for bureaucratic reasons, sometimes for economic reasons. And so a regulation program should avoid creating so much bureaucracy and difficulties for people to make sure that they can have a second chance and meet in Canada regularly. And I think it should look like also as a very democratic program, which means basically that the government should incorporate or should talk to organizations like Solidarity Across Borders, like so many others that there exist in Canada, so with so many people who have developed a lot of skills and knowledge about the living conditions of those people, and so incorporate them or make them together in a plan that makes possible that people can get a status. And the details can be discussed, the deal can be developed based on other people's practices. In the United States, often they do regularization programs. Here in Canada, they have been done with the construction workers. They have done that with the Portuguese community several decades ago. In general, this country has been built upon waves of migrants who sometimes don't have status, but they got a status for some reason. And the reason why they get a status often is because they organize and they say that to the government, and sometimes the government listen to that. And so that it should look like that, like a program in which bureaucratic system gets less rigid, that is based on values of inclusion and support, and that also that includes the point of view and the suggestion made by Canadian civil society organizations and specialists on migration, people who have done research and stuff. Yeah, I think that's how it should look like a regularization program.
Thank you. I remember, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, but Montreal had declared itself a sanctuary city. Since not all people actually have status, how much of this is really true in our current state right now?
Yeah, very, very important. I think that as a political will, is good. It's always welcome. From my point of view, not all my colleagues think that way, but for me, it's like, even at a discursive level, is a step forward. But what is more important than just the discourse is really what happens on the ground. On the ground, really, we don't have spaces still that really provides support on undocumented workers, institutional programs that allows them to have access to healthcare and security system, and so on and so forth. And so while, if that doesn't happen, that means that, the sanctuary city and solidarity city that we are talking about, it does not existent. We should work towards filling up those gaps and making sure that people have access to that really Montreal and other cities became a sanctuary city or solidarity city. But so far, that is not reality. In fact, in that context, a lot of people got like, they felt like, oh, okay, so now I am welcome. And we got some people that actually were detained and were deported in that context, in the context of declaring, Montreal as a sanctuary city is called, right? No,
Sanctuary city?
sanctuary city, yes,
Yeah,
sanctuary.
yeah.
And so, and some people say, well, I believe in that, and it didn't work. And so, yeah, we need to do a lot of work on that. So far, it hasn't been really a reality. And but we don't give up. We think that it is possible, that what we are demanding is not a crazy thing. It's something that has been happening in all countries that have a democratic tradition. And I think that will happen eventually. It's just a matter of continuing doing some work and putting the work out there. And yeah.
What are the typical jobs, especially ones that non-status people are working at night?
Food industry, cleaning after everything everybody goes. You have to clean, the meat industry particularly. You have to clean up and all those kind of organs and blood and all those kind of things that happens in those factories. You have to clean up. A lot of people don't want to, and so people who are there are jobs there, right? And so yes, clean in the cleaning industry as well. Cleaning offices at night. I myself did work doing that, providing company to colleagues, to friends who are working there for part of my work, my ethnography, and cleaning a lot of the offices, these nice offices buildings, like 14 buildings, 10 buildings, cleaning them up all night. So in the morning, everything is ready, set up for people entering and providing services and stuff. Construction, demolition. Demolition is very hard. When you're building, you have to demolish first, and then those jobs are very risky and very, very very heavy, very physically demanding. There are a lot of undocumented people there, and renovation industry as well, inside homes. Doing painting and all those kind of things. What else? Construction, renovation, demolition. The food industry, and summer, vegetables and vegetables and fruit and all those kind of industries, and strawberries and the tomatoes, and in Minto, strawberries in Quebec, and so many industries. But food industry, construction industry, and cleaning industry, I would say, are the ones who have the most people there who are in conditions of precarity.
Thank you so much for answering that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think is important for me to know or consider while putting this story together?
I don't think. I think you cover, well, a variety of topics that are relevant, and I don't think so. The only thing I could say is that, people can look for solidarity across borders. To see what are the campaigns we have permanently. We are raising funds permanently for people who lost their jobs and have no access to security system. $1 or $1,000 are helpful. And so if people want to support our work, and that will be up days, they can volunteer as well. And they can support us, sharing their stories, our work, and the work of others who are doing the same work. And that's what I wanted to add. And I also wanted to say that people like you who are producing news or programs are extremely important, are actually fundamental in spreading the word, our work as well. And because, we want to diminish suffering among people. And so I think it's very important what you guys do. And I just thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today throughout your really busy schedule.
Thank you very much, Savanna.
Take care. Be safe. Bye.